Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while, but I finally got the time and the motivation and I lost my creativity, but it's coming back. I'm finally feeling like myself again. So I'm here with a new video for you. So a while ago when I did my Q&A sessions, I asked if you'd like to see more of the collections that I've designed. I showed you really briefly the two big collections that I've done in the recent years and asked if you wanted to see more detail, and you guys said yes. So today I'm going to talk about my collection from 2014, which was called Mothe-Chandeniers. So Mothe-Chandeniers was inspired by my favourite ruined chateau in France. I have made two vlogs about this chateau, which I'll put links to below. The first one was from maybe about 3 years ago, back when I was visiting my mum in France, and I'm just stood outside it, and then I actually got to visit it. It's open to the public now. There was a huge crowdfunding campaign, which I talk about in the two vlogs if you want to hear about that. So last year I actually got to visit it and go inside the grounds of it for the first time. I still haven't been inside the actual chateau because they're still working on it, but hopefully next time, by the time we're allowed to travel and go to France again, I'll be able to do that. So Mothe-Chandeniers is about 20 minutes from where my mum lives in France, and she discovered it one day when she was just out for a drive, I think, and she told me about it and she said, I have to take you to see this really magical place, you're just going to love it. At the time it was completely private, you couldn't go in, but you could just see it from the road. It was abandoned in the 1930s after a fire, and since then it's just started decaying and falling apart, and the trees have grown up through it, but there's still enough of the structure there that you can see the ghost of this beautiful castle. And she was right, I absolutely loved it. It captured my imagination. So when I found out that I was going to be showing a collection and I had to design something, that sprung straight to my mind, because when I was looking at it, every time I went to see it, when I look back at my photos of it, the fact that it was abandoned, the fact that no one had been in there for decades, just made my imagination run wild with what was going on inside the castle. What were the animals? Was there people still in there? Was there hidden treasure? That was my first thought. It was like, if they abandoned it and ran out so quickly in during this fire, what did they leave behind? What's hidden in there? So the whole idea of the collection became, or it started as the idea of what was left inside this beautiful ruin, what was going on in there in this place that was untouched by people. So from there I started sort of thinking about my colours. I put together some mood boards and started thinking about animals and insects. So I've used a lot of textures and flowers and feathers, which were inspired by the idea of the creatures living there. And then that kind of evolved to become, each dress became a story or a creature or an animal or an emotion from inside the castle that developed into a dress. So each of the dresses in the collection, instead of just being a dress, they all ended up with a story and a personality, which is something I'd never done before. And it was so much fun to take it beyond just designing a dress or just designing a corset, and designing this whole world that I was imagining inside the chateau. Then at the same time, I was listening to a lot of music while I was sewing. I was listening to music when I sew, and as I was working on things, lyrics from the songs I was listening to became really attached to each of the designs as well. So each design ended up with a name, a personality, and then these lyrics attached to it that told the story too. So what I'll do is I'm going to go through the collection as I showed it and talk you through each dress. I'll put up the name and the lyrics that go with each one and what it represents at the start, so you can sort of get an idea of what my whole story and vision was. And before I do that, I just want to talk about the order I showed it. The order that I show collections in is really, really important. And for this one, the order that I showed it in was really integral to that story that I created. So I started with the black dresses, and then as it got through the collection, it went from the black to these kind of really blush colours and these faded roses, and then it went through to pinks and peaches. So the idea behind that was it was night becoming morning. So we went from what was going on in the night time in the chateau through to the dawn, and it was a metaphor for hope, because I was seeing this chateau falling apart. And it was a metaphor that there would be a new dawn for this chateau. And now there has been. With the crowdfunding campaign, it's being saved. So it's just, it gives me goosebumps when I talk about it, that the fact that this has come true and that it's going to have a new life. It's having visitors again. And yeah, it's just magic to see. So along with designing all the clothes, I also designed all the headpieces to go with it. And when I styled it, I wanted it to create this very ethereal look. I actually used feather wigs on the models because I wanted to hide their hair and again sort of bring in this idea that they were all the animals or the birds that had evolved. So I used black and white feather wigs, which were really short. Then all of the headpieces were very big and dramatic. A lot of them were inspired, so a lot of them have got sort of two pieces on the side of the head with feathers coming out, and they were inspired by insect eyes and birds, like the idea of birds having their eyes on the side of their head, and lots of crystals and jewellery and things hanging over the face. Again, I just wanted to create that very ethereal, otherworldly look in the styling. So my process is, that my inspiration, then sketching and getting all my fabric samples together and working out my colour story. And then from there, then I sort of get my mood boards together for accessories and makeup, and then design all of the makeup and hair to go with it all. So that's how I work. So often things will change while I'm working on them. Some of the headpieces sort of evolved while I was doing it, just seeing how things sat and draped while they were being worn. Some of the dress designs evolved a little bit as well, but overall I was so happy with how this collection came out. So after I showed the collection, I was contacted by a photographer here in Canberra called Chandeniers, who I've worked with multiple times. She is incredible. I'll put links below so you can go and see her work. Her work just blows my mind every time. She contacted me and asked if she could then shoot the collection. Seeing my dresses and hearing the story of the chateau then inspired her own ideas of a story based on it as well. And she created an exhibition called Ghost Stories, which was based around my dresses and around her idea of what was happening in this beautiful ruined chateau. So I will put up through it as well all Laurie's pictures from Ghost Stories, so you can see her interpretation of the chateau and her interpretation of my designs and what the story meant for each one. Now I'm going to talk you through each dress, the design and the construction as well. So if you've got any questions after all this, just leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer it. This is probably going to be quite long. So yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy hearing about all the pieces I created. Out of the 13 looks I created, I've only got these ones left. I've sold the rest. And unfortunately I don't have any of the headpieces left. They all sold a long time ago, so I can't show you them in real life, but I can show you them in the photos. So the first dress is the one that I wore, and this is the one I wore when I came out at the end of showing my collection. So my character was called the Daydream, and this dress is called Dreaming of Secrets. It's made from this rose mesh with sequins in the middle of each flower. It came like this. I didn't do all the I didn't do all of the sequins myself. It's got a full steel bone corset inside it, and then this little skirt, which I found this gorgeous ruffly fabric, which was perfect to add to the skirt, just to create a little bit of a ruffly petticoat underneath. And it's just added enough fullness that it holds the skirt out the bottom and it moves really nicely. And then I had a little jacket to go with it, made of the same fabric, and I styled it with lots of big pearl necklaces and a black rose headpiece. Then it's just finished at the waist with a velvet ribbon and a velvet bow, just to really highlight the shape of the waist there. So you can see the back of the dress laces up with a panel underneath it, and it just comes together in that V shape. And then there's a concealed zip at the bottom, so you can get the dress on and off. I'll take it off the mannequin and I'll show you the construction inside it. So for these dresses, where the skirt starts at the waist and the corset continues down, I actually hand sew the skirt onto the waist because of the steel boning. So I sew it with a double thread and I go over it a couple of times, and it's really, really strong. And then I hide the join with these waistbands. That's how I made all the dresses with the skirts starting from the waist in this collection. Here we go. So if I show you the inside, you can see there's a full corset inside. And then because this mesh is quite see-through, I actually covered the corset in just some stretchy cheap velvet just to hide the boning so it wasn't going to show through. Then I attached the mesh to the top half of the corset. Yeah, it looks like I managed to drape it over in one piece so there's no seams in it. And then I attached the skirt and sewed that on, both layers of the skirt. So there's a layer of lining, black satin lining with the ruffles on. And then the floral mesh over the top. And then finished to hide that join with the velvet at the waist. The next dress was, the character is the Black Rose. The dress name was Black Baccarat, which is the name of a very, very dark rose. I think it's the closest to black that they've managed to get in a rose. And the headpiece was called Night Garden. So this is the idea that this beautiful black garden was growing somewhere within these ruins with black roses and black flowers. This dress I'd actually made a couple of years before, and I decided to include it in the collection because it really fitted in with what I was doing, and also because the cost and the time involved in creating a full collection like this when you're only one person is just huge. So it really just helped me bring the cost down and gave me another look without the expense and the time of making it. 'Cause I think this dress took me probably nearly a week to make. It was really involved. This dress I've sold, so I can't show you, but it was a separate corset and skirt. And it was actually made of midnight blue satin overlaid with black silk organza. So as it moved, you just saw that really dark blue coming through. The skirt was made of absolute miles and miles of black silk organza, which then I did the little pickups in the skirt. So you get those lovely little sort of puffs all over the skirt. It's really time consuming to do, especially on a skirt with a big train as well. But the effect is just awesome. It's not something I've done in a while. It was something that was really popular in the sort of early 2000s. Then the corset was the same dark blue satin with the black organza pleated, and then I added black lace and black and midnight blue Swarovski crystals to it, so it just glittered in the dark. Then to style this one, she had the black feather wig, and then the headpiece was black, all these black crystal pieces that I found and black flowers. Adding this headpiece to this dress changed it from how I'd shown it before at wedding fairs and in photo shoots. It gave it that really dramatic look, and with the black wig as well. So when I style for catwalk, I like to go over the top. I like to create a show. So even though some of the pieces may be quite simple, by the time you've styled it and added jewellery and big headpieces, it just creates that dramatic look and that extravaganza that people want from a catwalk show. I think people enjoy, the feedback I got was people really enjoyed my show because I did create something dramatic and memorable. There was a hoop petticoat underneath the skirt to hold it out. I kept the styling, other than the big dramatic headpiece, I kept it quite simple with just a black rose ring, if I remember correctly, just because there was already so much going on at the top of the dress and with this huge headpiece. So this was my opening look for the show. I always like to start with something really dramatic to grab people's attention. So again, coming back to the idea that the order that I was showing things is really important, I do like to start with something really dramatic to really get people looking right from the start. So next up is the Raven. So the dress was called Corvus and the headpiece was called Night Watch. So the idea that she was the raven watching over everyone there, she was collecting the treasures. Alright, so this dress was not corseted. So this dress had a very low open back. I used the same ruffly fabric that I'd used for the petticoat of my dress. And then I used the same black lace that I had put onto the corset for Black Baccarat gown. And I created this it was very low at the front and very low at the back. And then I created this posture collar with hundreds and hundreds of little tiny black glass faceted beads that went with it. And just I wanted the raven to be really shiny, like a raven collecting its treasure. Yeah, so this was me. Because I mainly do corsetry, I wanted to have a go at making a dress with an open back, see if I can do it, and yeah, it worked out really well. Unfortunately, I've sold this one as well, so I can't show you, but I do have another dress in the collection that was made very similar, so I'll show you when we get to that one. So next up is another one of my night creatures within the Chateau Grands, and she's the cat. So I'm a crazy cat lady, so there had to be a cat in there. So this dress is called Eye in the Dark, and the headpiece is called Trophy. So the idea came from not seeing the cat, but just like catching a glimpse of an eye reflecting, watching you as you're looking in. So the dress for this one is again using that sequin flower fabric. It's got the same waistband and bow as my dress. So when you're making a collection, you want little elements that bring it together, that show it's the same collection. So by using fabrics or trims or styles through the collection, it helps make it really cohesive. So I use the same sequin floral fabric, the same lace, the idea of the waistband again, and the same ruffle fabric. So this time though, it's got a corset inside it, and then it's like a little mini dress, but then it's got this long net skirt, which then finishes at the bottom with the same sequin fabric. And then all around that I added my cat's eyes, so they're little tiny emerald crystals, like beautiful black cats with green eyes. So that just hint of green all around the bottom. It's made the same way, so the corset inside and then the skirt attached at the waist. It's just this time the skirt is not an A-line skirt, it's like a little pencil skirt that then the long mesh bit joins onto. Then, because she was a cat, I wanted her to have little cat trophies, because you know cats love a little cat trophy. My newest little black cat likes to steal cotton buds and Chupa Chup wrappers and stash them. So because these guys are living in the chateau, I thought she'd stash bird skulls. So her headpiece was called Trophy, and on it was a little bird skull. And then I made, and this was the only piece of jewellery I made and kept for this one. So I found these incredible castings. So this is a resin casting of a bird skull, so it's really light. And I made this one into a ring with the same green crystals and some black crystals. And then she had a bigger version of this on the headpiece as well. So this is my black cat displaying her trophies. The next dress is another one that I've sold, and this one was the character was the past. So the dress was called Do You Still Think of Me, and the headpiece was called Chance. So this is the point in the collection where I started bringing in more of a light colour into it. So I used a blushy nudie colour underneath black lace. So this was my transition from the black heading towards the lighter colours. That's how I started to do it. Again, it was a corseted dress. It was very similar to the shape of the last one, but with that blushy colour underneath the black, the same black lace and black waistband. And then at the bottom I used a black chantilly lace to create the sheer skirt coming down from the bottom of the pencil skirt. And then she had a little black lacy cape made from the same chantilly lace as well. And then her headpiece was very big with lots of flowers and big black feathers. And I was still using the black wigs at this point. So next up was another kind of mixture between the light and the dark, and this one was the stars. And unfortunately this is another one that I've sold. So the dress is called Light from Another World and the headpiece was called Polaris. So this came from the idea of lying in the chateau at night and looking up into the sky and just stargazing within the chateau, lying in this beautiful ruin. This dress is another corseted dress with the skirt coming from the waist. She had a petticoat underneath it. It was a creamy coloured satin with black tulle and black lace and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of little black crystals to give the twinkle of the night as she walked. And then the headpiece was, yeah, lots of big black feathers again. The movement of the clothes on the catwalk's really important to me and something I really like to think of. And the cape that she wore with this was such heavy lace, and with the weight of the crystals as she walked, it looked incredible. It just moved so beautifully, and that movement then gave the sparkle that I wanted. So next up is the garden. This dress was called Metalina and the headpiece is called Lullaby. So this was the first dress that moved away from black and started to bring in these lovely sort of pale papery, like when flowers lose all their colour. That's what my inspiration was for this. The name Metalina is a rose, which is this kind of old papery brown colour with just a hint of like blushy pinks in there. So this dress actually had lots of flowers on the waistband. I've actually taken them off because I used it for a photo shoot recently and styled it really differently. But this is exactly the same as my dress, just made from the champagne version of the fabric and the cream version of the ruffles underneath it, and then the cream ruffles to create the little bolero to go with it. And then her headpiece was lots of different feathers and flowers to create that kind of, yeah, that faded old garden look. So the next dress in the collection continued the theme of this beautiful old faded garden. This look was called The Memory. The dress was called In the Arms of Flowers, and the headpiece is called Tantara, which is another name of a rose with those beautiful barely there blush and cream colours. So this one again is the shape of the two previous gowns with the pencil skirt and the long sheer at the bottom. This time it's a cream satin with this gorgeous cotton eyelash lace over the top, and as it comes down to the sheer part at the bottom, I dip dyed it with tea. I got through a lot of different tea bags varieties working out the best colour for this. So this is just tea stained at the bottom to give it that old look, and I absolutely love this cotton eyelash lace. It's just beautiful. A very different look to the other sparkly dresses, the sparkles and shimmers that I'd had so far, because I wanted to create that old kind of faded flower look. I didn't want so much sparkle going on in this one. And then she had the sort of faded flowers at the waist to go with it. So, and again, this one's made in the same way as the others. It's got the corset underneath with the pencil skirt sewn on, and then the sheer bottom part of the skirt and the sheer train. So next up is this character is the moon. The dress is called Luna and the headpiece is Selene. So this is my other open back dress, like the black one I showed you earlier on, so I can show you more about how I made this. So this is actually created on just a really sort of narrow halter neck piece. So the skirt forms the waist, so it's a skirt with a waistband. Then I attach the halter neck piece here, and from there I then piece on the lace. This is the white version of the black lace that I'd used in some of the earlier dresses. So I start piecing on the lace and using the shapes within the lace to create these shoulder pieces to hold it in at the sides here, and to create the join. My satin actually stops just there, and then this lace here holds it together. And then I used all of the lace pieces here. It's stretched out of shape a bit here, unfortunately. And that holds everything in place. and I just curved the lace on the shoulders to create these little cap sleeves, and then I've sewn loads of pearls on the back to create this drape down the open back here. Then the skirt is just an A-line satin skirt, which I've layered with maybe 15 meters or so of this really, really soft tulle. This dress is looking a bit shabby. It's been used so much in catwalk shows and photo shoots and wedding fairs that it's a bit past its best. I'm thinking I might give this dress a little bit of a revamp, which is something I do from time to time if I've got old samples that look like they need a new lease of life, so I'll give it a revamp. So I might do a video of revamping a dress into something a bit different, because it's the lace part and the top part's still in good condition. To do up, this one actually, it zips at the back of the skirt, and then you have to put it over your head. Because of the pearls on the back with the black dress, I could do it so it tied up here, but because of all this pearl draping, you have to sort of slide into it, and it's quite tricky. Getting it on is actually easier than getting it off, because gravity helps you, so trying to get back out of it is, it's quite tricky. So I think I need to revamp this whole back part and do it differently. I think it needs more crystals, it needs more sparkle. And this tulle is, and the satin have definitely seen better days. Even with washing, they're still filthy. So I think I might take the whole skirt part off, revamp the top and add a new skirt to it. So I'll make a video when I get around to doing that. So this was my moon. The next character was The Secret, and the dress was called Talia, and the headpiece was Sweet Panache. This is where I started to bring more pink in as well. It's what I've sold as well, so again, I haven't got that here to show you. And it was another dress that I already had made that actually fitted really nicely into the collection and worked really well with the other designs that I had. Again, to save time, to save money, because one person creating a collection of this magnitude is expensive and time consuming. So this dress was perfect to fit in. So again, it was a corseted dress with the skirt coming from the waist. It had ivory chantilly lace over the top part of the corset, a huge blingy crystal embellished piece around the waist, and then the skirt was layers and layers and layers of really blush pink silk chiffon ruffles, which took ages. But again, that when we go talk about movement again, those ruffles on the catwalk, just because they're the silk chiffon, they just bounced on the catwalk and just look so pretty, so beautiful. And then for her headpiece, I echoed the crystal piece around the waist with a crystal piece at the front, and then blush pink flowers on the sides. So next up is the princess, because every ruined chateau has to have a princess in a tower, because I'm a diehard Disney fan and I couldn't make a collection about a beautiful castle without a princess. So this is my princess, my Sleeping Beauty in the tower. So the dress is called Hide from Time, and the headpiece is called Time Won't Let Me Go. And this is probably the biggest skirt I've ever made. So it was a separate corset and skirt. I find once you're making huge skirts like this, I like to do them as two pieces, like the Black Rose dress, because having the waistband supports the weight of the skirt and then the corset sits over it. So the skirt for this is silk organza, and it is made again from miles and miles of ruffles of silk organza. I can't even remember how much silk organza I used, but this took me days to cut and ruffle and stitch all of these onto the layers of the skirt. So it's got one long layer at the bottom down to the train. That's the end of my train with all these humongous ruffles on it. Then there was another layer which is edged in ruffles, which is longer at the back than the front, and then a final short layer which has got a bit squished from me on my rack, which again just creates that lovely puff and that movement. And I had a big hoop petticoat underneath it. Then I used the same silk organza to create this little bolero jacket to go over it. And because the silk organza is nice and stiff, it just sits up around the collar really beautifully. And I left the edges raw. I didn't even finish them. Same on the skirt. I cut everything on the bias so that it didn't completely fray, but it gives you this lovely sort of aged edge on it. I didn't think hemming it or doing a rolled hem on the overlocker would have looked right. I wanted to leave it sort of with this raw edge, and I'm really glad that I did. Then the corset to go with it is an ivory silk satin, which I've then layered this beautiful pink lace, which has this metallic silver thread running through it. And then I put on some silver lace and then a necklace. This is actually a necklace I found, which is sewn on. But the way I've done the placement, it just really exaggerates the shape of the waist. Whatever size you are to start with, if you take a silhouette and put a corset on it, that's bringing your waist in. As soon as you add a huge skirt, that makes your waist look even smaller again. And then once you create the illusion of a waist even more with embellishments like this, you can end up with this incredible hourglass figure, but not all through corseting. A lot of it is playing with proportions, and that's what I did here. And then for corsets with really big skirts, I stopped them really short beneath the waist. So from the waist it curves straight out and then the skirt puffs out from under there. If you go too long, it squashes the skirt and then the skirt puffs from down here, and it doesn't give you that same effect. Then the headpiece for this one was kind of like a mixture of a crown and the other headpieces I've been creating. So I used necklaces to create the sort of the crown and the piece on the forehead, and then I added the pink flowers at the side to keep him with that sort of insect theme. So while she's a princess, she's not your traditional princess. So the next dress is the Treasure, and the dress is called Treasure and the headpiece was called Forever. So I had to have the treasure in there because that was the idea that sparked my imagination and started the whole process for this. This dress was again a corseted dress. It was made from silver sequin fabric, which I then layered with this kind of beige nude tulle. So as she moved the sequins, the treasure shone through the tulle. You know, that's something I use a lot. I've made so many sequin dresses that are layered with other things over the top. It's one of my favourite things to do. I love that you can make something sparkly but just have it a little bit secret so it does just sparkle through as you move. Again, it showed really well on the catwalk because the sparkles just picked up beautifully in the lights. Then it had an asymmetrical shoulder piece which I embellished with lots of silver lace, which was the same silver lace as I had on this. And then the headpiece, this was one that didn't follow the others because it was almost like a sort of cap made from the lace, so it sat really flat on her head over the creamy feather wig. And then I finished it off, I styled it with a cuff made from that same lace as well. The last dress is the Dawn. So this is the final look in the whole collection. And this is the dawn, the sun's coming up, and it's, yeah, my metaphor for hope for a future for the chateau. This dress is called Morning Star and the headpiece was called Venus. So this, again, it's a corseted dress with that kind of pencil skirt and then the long skirt and train at the bottom. Only this time I added the silver sequins underneath to sort of tie into the silver sequins in the previous dress. I found a kind of rose fabric again, like the ones I used for my dress and the champagne version of it, but it didn't have the sequins in it, so putting the sequins underneath the peach, just, again, it's that sort of, that beautiful morning light coming up and the stars disappearing. So this one, again, like the cat dress, it's got the trim from the dress around the bottom, and this one had a huge train. I went like crazy dramatic with this train. I wanted it to be miles long when she came out on the catwalk because it was my finale piece. This one needs a bit of an overhaul. I've just noticed some of the embellishments are falling off.
So to embellish it, I had these beautiful silver leaf appliques. This rhinestone applique, which is the one that I need to stitch back on, and then these peachy coloured flowers. And then I used clear and pink crystals to add the sparkle. Yeah, it's the end of the stars and the start of the morning is this dress. All right, so again, you can see the corset inside it. There's the the bottom of the corset, and then the skirt joined over the top of the corset. So I've moved away from doing this quite so much because you do see the line of the corset through it, but it does still work. So now originally it had lots of these straps. They're all broken. So I used clear elastic, and then I put cut out the flowers from the fabric and sewed them on and put crystals on. So it looked like the flowers were just floating over her shoulders. And then her headpiece was peaches and silvers as well. And that was my final look. So there you have it. That's my 13 looks that I created for this collection. So the 12 looks that were on the catwalk, and then my look to go with it. As a designer, I always like to dress to match the collection when I come out at the end. I know a lot of designers don't, but for me, I like to be part of the story that I've just told. So if you've got any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to ask them. If you want more details on any of the construction, I don't have the links to the fabrics because I bought all of these like back in 2013, 2014. So you just have to do some Googling to see if you can find them, because I doubt I can still get a lot of them. Let me know if you want to see in depth any of the construction processes that I used for any of these gowns. They're not anything that I've covered in video series that I've done so far, or the headpieces as well. I haven't done any sort of headpieces. I've done similar ones, but nothing quite like these big ones that I made for this show. And in the next video, I'm going to show you my next collection, which was my 2015 collection called Cherries in the Snow. And that was the last full collection I've done. I moved away from doing these big shows and big collections just because of the cost and the time. So it's just me here sewing, and the cost and time of making this many couture dresses is just vast. And if I'm sewing on them for a month, it means I don't have that time to sew for clients, so I've got no income. So it's something that I've had to stop doing, which is why I've moved to doing more of just the one-off dresses that I show you in the video series when I'm trying to learn something new or learn a new technique or try something different out. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it interesting. And yeah, I'll be back soon with Cherries in the Snow. Sorry it's been so long. My head's been, I haven't been in a good headspace, but I think that's echoed by people around the world at the minute. It's a strange time we're living through, but I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. Doing my hair, getting my hair done was a big part of that, which is really superficial, but it's amazing how much more confident you feel when you feel like you look like yourself. So, and I'll be back soon. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please share my channel with your friends as well. And thanks for watching.